Hello everyone, this is Ray Space, back in Realism Overhaul Sandbox and Kerbal Space Program 1.12, where I've made a new part, yet again. I've made so many new parts. In this case, it is a Centaur stage. In the previous video of the Lynx spacecraft, where I sent it to the moon in the space shuttle, we had two different stages. We had a methane oxygen stage and the Centaur stage from Radionix US rockets pack. And somebody in the comments mentioned that, well, why don't we just fully fuel the Centaur stage and skip the methane stage? Well, first of all, it turns out that the delta V's for that end up being about the same because of the sheer size of the Centaur stage. But also, the Centaur stage was not configured to dock to anything. It didn't have any forward-facing thrusters, and it was sort of inconveniently shaped for that. And also, it doesn't naturally have MLI layers. It also doesn't naturally have a built-in fuel cell or anything like that. It doesn't act like a service module. Service modules need to not only have the fuel and the engines, but also they need to have some sort of power generation, either solar panels or a fuel cell. If you've got a hydrogen-oxygen stage, you might as well go with fuel cell. And it needs to be able to contain the water from the fuel cell, which is generated by the fuel cell when you combine hydrogen and oxygen. It needs to potentially have oxygen, especially as boil off from the oxygen tank. Most service modules would have some sort of oxygen generation system converting the liquid oxygen to oxygen for use. And then we have to have an adapter that sends all that stuff up to the pod. So that's the electrical, the water, and the oxygen. So that's what we have here. So even though this Centaur stage is containing less propellant than the Centaur stage from Radionix Titan 4 in the US rockets pack, it is heavier. It is actually 20% heavier because it's got all that stuff. So, but that saves us some trouble. We don't have to put the solar panels on. We have the RCS ports facing up, as they are right there. And we still are using the same engines, the Titan 4 engines from Radionix US rockets pack, but I have configured them as the RL10A41/2. And that means that we get a little bit extra ISP. However, I'm not entirely sure that the fuel mix is the same, and these are a bit heavier. They also give more thrust. I don't know if it's worthwhile getting the ISP if they're heavier. Let me run with it. We'll launch it properly. We'll launch it properly and see how much delta V we get out of this. Honestly, I should probably be using the more advanced RL10, shouldn't I? Well, I don't seem to have extra RL10s in here right now. This is a shuttle install after all. So we'll just have to go with this for now. But yeah, maybe I'll take a look at the RL10Cs some other time. But this is more in keeping with the time, so we'll call it legit. Alright, so the ascent guidance will line up with the moon first, and that inevitably puts us in the dark at this time of year. And off we go. We are past the speed of sound, and it says vehicle has reached max Q. Really, the pod should probably be the other way around, and preferably dock to some sort of docking port assembly on the front and airlock. That'll make it easier for the Kerbals to get into it, or people. That would make it harder for the shuttle to abort, though. Okay, getting ready for booster set. Outboard boosters. Oh, I think I had a misstaged engine. Well, at least it has multiple ignitions. shouldn't have caused any problems. Well, that's another problem with using the Centaur stage as the service module, is that they only have 10 ignitions, and they rarely get tested with all 10 in a particular mission. So you could potentially make an RL-10 with more ignitions, but we don't have them like certified in RO for that. There's the RL-60, there's some potential variants, but generally they end up with 10. I could handle a lunar mission with 10, just doing a lot of stuff with the RCS. The RCS in this case is also Hydrolux, so no problem there. It's not a separate propellant being used there. That's another thing. The original Centaur has hydrazine RCS, so that's not great because that could deplete anyway. And you could have a full tank of hydrogen and oxygen, but end up running out of RCS propellant. The RCS on the Centaur that we have here is running at 400 seconds of ISP. Alright, the engines are out, separating from the external tank. This Centaur stage will end up being part of my Shuttle payloads pack, which currently I think just has a Chandra X-ray telescope. Alright, I have to do the OMS burn. Well, while we're completing this orbit, let me transfer some crew into it, just surreptitiously like this. Okay, that's a standard orbit. We'll get into daylight side before separating off the spacecraft. Okay, what do we have here? 4,633 meters per second as it is like. And it's actually 27.6 tons, so a little bit more than the shuttle was supposed to carry up. But I think the Centaur pretty much was. So any Centaur setup probably would push it a little bit. So, but we are a little bit heavier, for the record. Oh, and that's probably because I didn't lock these. I was supposed to lock the clean water and oxygen. It's just supposed to be refilled by the fuel cell and boil off from the liquid oxygen. So, yeah, we probably would have been less mass like that. But okay. As far as supplies are concerned, well, right now, because we're full up on the water and oxygen, the food is only 18 days still. I should have packed some more food. But with the Delta V that we have, we could probably get into a nice tight orbit around the moon and come back instead of the Lunar Gateway orbit. But we should be doing Lunar Gateway orbit, I suppose. I mean, I think the fate of Lunar Gateway is a little bit up in the air, but people don't seem to understand the logic behind Lunar Gateway is that it's for if we actually want to have a long-term presence on the moon. So the argument against is often, well, why are you making the lander do so much work and instead having such a small service module on Orion, for instance? And the reason you're making the lander do so much work is because we're expecting to be able to get propellant from the moon. If we can refuel the lander on the moon, then it saves us a lot of trouble bringing the propellant from Earth if the place that the lander needs to dock to is higher up. So it'll just get the propellant from the moon and then do its thing, right? Especially if it's the Blue Moon lander from Blue Origin, which is Hydrolux, which can refuel on the moon. Then it's got enough that it could refuel on the moon, get to Lunar Gateway, and then come back down again without having to get any fuel from Earth. So that's the ideal situation. And then you save the amount of propellant you need to bring from Earth by having the Orion just do a light capture around the moon to dock with Lunar Gateway. It minimizes how much we have to bring from Earth. If you were planning to do a real serious moon logistical thing where you're doing in situ resource utilization at the moon. If it's just, you know, planting a flag and all, that's, you know, different. Then you do it the Apollo way. But Lunar Gateway is meant to be if you're not just planting a flag. If you're totally banking on getting fuel from the moon. And in the case where you're totally banking on getting fuel from the moon, makes a lot of sense. I was skeptical about the whole Lunar Gateway thing until I actually tried it out. People mock Kerbal Space Program, but actually trying something out in Kerbal Space Program with as much fidelity as you can manage certainly teaches you a whole lot of things about the logic behind them. Right now there is no boil-off loss. Now I only put 50 MLI layers, but it's saying no boil-off loss, so... MLI is not heavy, by the way. It's always good to put MLI layers if you can. That's why satellites are practically always covered in them. They aren't even cryogenic, and they cover it with MLI layers just to keep the electronics cool and everything. And stuff from expanding. These plumes could do with a little bit resizing, I think. They're a little bit big. So these are the larger variant, the one that gets 451 seconds and nearly 100 kilonewtons. Okay. I'm just using RCS to finish this. So we have 1,530 meters per second left. So I'll keep it a little bit loose, but it'll let us return faster than I did with the Lunar Gateway version. So we've got a tighter orbit there. We do have to keep some of the hydrogen and oxygen for the fuel cell. Oh, it looks like the hydrogen and oxygen is actually imbalanced. Well, I'm gonna continue with the mission and just demonstrate that we can get back. But I think this variant of the RL-10 uses a different fuel mix than the variant that I originally based the tank on, the A3-3A. So that's why. Okay, and ignition. Okay, let's just stop it right there. So we are in a 934 by 63 kilometer orbit. It's like that. Still probably not good to immediately try to go back, because our apoapsis is on this side and we would have to make our exit burn over here, which is not efficient. Oh, just kill rotation, please. Could we? I've kept it loose because otherwise we might not have enough. It looks like we have enough as long as we keep it like this. If I had brought it all the way down, we might not have had enough. So yeah, like this, we have enough with about 100 meters per second for the RCSN fuel cell on the way back. But let's try it a little bit later. So let's say we hang out for a little while, keeping an eye on the supplies this time, as opposed to last time. I'll say we'll wait 9 days. Well, we appear to have an issue here. But let me try and dump some of the water and the waste. It's still a little bit tight here. We'll see whether the RCS can finish it off. This is not great, but part of the reason is because our hydrogen and oxygen is imbalanced here. We'll see what we can do about that, but see if I can still make this work. It should be noted that the radiator isn't actually configured on here to cool anything, but doesn't seem to need to be because we don't have any visible boil-off. We seem to lose a lot more than expected during the wait. And go. Okay, so 12 meters per second with the RCS. Let's see if we have enough to do that. It is not ideal. Oh, okay. That's more than enough. And now, do we have enough for the fuel cell on the way back? Actually, it is a pretty long trip back, so we might run out of food, but that's not critical. Yeah, we'll run out of food a little bit early, but I had packed a little bit too little of that. Ideally, we should just dock at Lunar Gateway and the Delta V requirements would be less. Oh, apparently it's not supplying power even though we still have some... Oh, because, okay, we've run out of oxygen in the stage, but we actually have some oxygen in the pod that we could use. Alright, crisis averted. Technically, it's not supposed to work that way, but let's just accept that for now. Okay, that'll be fine. Okay, the pod's all alone now. Well, to descent mode or not to descent mode? Well, I'm turning it on, but let me limit it to like 50%. Is this properly configured for Earth re-entry? We're about to find out. I mean, again, it's because Realism Overhaul changed a few things about heat shields along the way that makes things uncertain. We're 6.7 tons, which should compare favorably with Apollo. We're only a 3-passenger pod. Well, it's not meant to be an OP pod. The overheating indicator shows that we're not over-tolerant or anything. The problem is it's got RCS ports sticking out. I think we're definitely gonna come down. I can roll for G-force here, but we've certainly got plenty of G-force. What was the peak? 5.8 though. 5.8 Gs. Got a second peak here, but it's also pretty restrained. I expect it'll be about the same. Firefly doing its thing, of course. You can see the RCS ports are especially in flame. Gosh, it's really harsh on those RCS ports. 6.2 Gs. Okay, we are subsonic, so I'll try to release the aero cap here. Ooh, that's why I said try. It does like to get caught. Basically, right on the dateline there. Yep, right on the dateline. Or, assuming that the dateline doesn't do one of its funny bends, I mean. The anti-meridian, I guess, is another way of putting it. Okay, still got some problems, but we brought them back this time. Oh, I kept Fizz Warp on during splashdown. Whoops. Anyway, let's see about rebalancing the fuel and what benefit that gives us. Okay, so I want to change the fuel so that it's this version of the RL-10. There we go, just a little bit more oxygen and a little bit less hydrogen. And let's just cheat it into orbit and see what that ends up giving us in terms of delta V. Last time it was 4,633. Just have the whole stack here. Well, now it's reading 5,163, which is a lot more. So we could definitely get into a nice tight orbit around the moon and come back without any problems with this, since it's 500 meters per second more than we had before. So no real problems, and in fact we're still full of the water and oxygen there. But we should carry a little bit more food up front. But yeah, it is capable of doing the job. And now it's just a matter of doing the other part with the shuttle, which is getting the lander over. And remember, for that I was planning to use an ion stage to slowly get the lander over and have it wait for this to arrive. And we're assuming that we can deal with boil off for an extended period of time, by which I mean 2 months. So we'll have a Hydrolox lander and this. And yeah, let's see if we can do a full-on shuttle moon landing mission and how little it might actually take with more modern technology, given the ion engines in particular. This doesn't need to be very modern, but in fact we're not using the most modern RL-10s. But yeah, with the ion engines we're definitely pushing modernity. Well, post-shuttle retirement levels of ion. Anyway, so with that test, I'll add this to the shuttle payloads mod and link that in the video description. Hopefully GitHub will let me do that properly. But with that, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.